Hey there, I'm Mark from Spectrum Pulse, and today we finally have from Xiu Xiu 13-inch Frank Beltrame Italian Stiletto with Bison Horn Grip. When I started hearing buzz about this new Xiu Xiu album outside of the usual critical acclaim, I wasn't sure what to think. The John Congleton production credit unfortunately gave me pause given the frustrating run he's had this year, but I heard terms like hook-driven and even accessible, and that kind of left me at a loss. Now, I've been on the record saying this duo's knack for hooks is criminally underrated, and my favorite albums of theirs are often where that melodic presence is accentuated. It's why I like 2021's Oh No more than last year's frustratingly opaque Ignore Grief, but that's also not an opinion I usually believe is shared among the fans, especially given that album title named after a switchblade in Jamie Stewart's collection. And well, the frustrating thing about this album is that on some level it feels outside of what Xiu Xiu has done in making accessible music before, until you claw even a level deeper and you find the sweaty, challenging, visceral underbelly, where the project feels more like an oppressive amplification of what we know. Probably one of the heaviest and, dare I even say, rock-leaning projects in their catalog, where Stewart has described the album in an interview with The Quietus as an attempt to make a psychedelic rock record and then a complete swerve into making anything but, or rather embracing the impressive psychedelic nightmare side of that spectrum and exploring the nature of obsession. And said exploration is necessarily abstract and yet intensely tactile, but it's also far from pretty, as it's juxtaposed with all the moments where Stewart is placing another person as the object of their desire instead of fully confronting one's own devils, which can lead to some thrilling, climactic moments of euphoria, especially on the dance floor, but can also be intensely oppressive and claustrophobic, especially when it becomes psychosexual on those grimy dance floors, where it feels like Xiu Xiu is meeting the challenge to match model actresses' kinetic rapture, or if said other person doesn't respond well to any of it. The back half of the project is where things get truly fascinating, as the overreach of the obsessor is questioned and then challenged. Try to get into the meat as to why someone does this, not as forgiveness, but more as introspection around that person. And when the person obsessed over ultimately leaves, you get the naked, ugly panic of trying to recapture the relationship that the obsessor thought was reciprocal, but never really was. And I really like the meta text implied about the relationship between the artist and audience in that state on the closing track, where it could be left ambiguous who is obsessing over who. I don't often comment on album art here, but I really love how it kind of has a holographic quality, reflective but distorted. Now granted, I can see why some might not fully get there immediately, as the project does start off rather slow with the aching strings and echoes of synth and Arp Omni, and only David Kendrick's distant crashes of percussion near the end to indicate what might be coming. And oh boy, does it ever, as Maestro One Chord takes this warped and oily psychedelic storm, the contorted robotic vocals that eventually sound so goddamn visceral and terrifying, and then brackets it with these cacophonous drums. And that showcases the sonic diversity across this album that, again, is more accessible, between the lumbering, riff-driven ragers, where the compressed synths go keen forth like Uncommon Loon and T.D.F.T.W, the latter of one of the few songs with Angela Sio's vocals, and I would have liked to hear a lot more of her, or the psychedelic stomper of Veneficium, or the utterly filthy guitar work juxtaposed with the haunted minimalism on Sleep Boulevard, where I'm citing it as probably the greatest redemption for John Congleton, again, after a pretty rough year of production credits. And then you get the increasingly strange synth-driven experiments, like the fuzzy, warbling industrial weirdness of Bobby Bland or Pale Flower. Probably I don't like them as much, but even then the drums just sound fucking massive on the final third of the latter song. All of which is allowed to culminate amidst the warped and haunted keys, and that delivers that pure, hideous nightmare fuel. But given how an album like this kinda has to end, I consider that high praise. It really connects. And overall, Yeah, I would call this another great project from Xiu Xiu, but I'm not sure I'd put it among my absolute favorites from them, like Fabulous Muscles or Oh No. The arc is considerably more claustrophobic and bleak, especially in the ending. We're leaning into the alien eccentricity as both its greatest strength and flaw, especially if you're trying to make it accessible along the way, especially as it knows it, and that's a perverse bit of metatext that I really respect. This album is absolutely not for everyone, in particular if you're one to grapple with personal obsessions and fixations. It can be a really harrowing listen to really confront how this project gets into both the euphoric and grotesque sides of pushing it way too far, but I also think it's really damn strong, and if you're up for a challenge, I think this is the right kind of knife play. So yeah, give this a shot. So yeah, thanks a lot for watching. If you want to see more, please be sure to like, share, drop comments, subscribe. Yeah, this is a bit of an obtuse project, a little difficult to talk about. I'm still not sure I fully got it right. It's one of the reasons this review is so late. But again, leave your comments down there below. I'm curious where y'all fall on this, especially interpreting it thematically. Beyond that, though, anything else I might be able to do to improve my presentation, I'm all ears. Well, if you want to get involved and help and support the channel beyond buying merch, I would normally push towards Patreon, but I also now have YouTube memberships as now open that offers some distinctive categorizations and even access to my schedule similar to my Patreon and my Discord if you're interested. But beyond that, I'm Mark, you're watching Spectrum Pulse, and I'll see you next time.